In our last class, we looked at JavaScript Object. So today's class is going to be a continuation of that class. So the things we're going to consider today will be square bracket notation and dynamic properties in JavaScript. So we're going to create an object together. Let's my object. Objects are denoted with curly braces like this. Inside these curly braces, you have your key value pair, a key, name, and a value. Sorry. Another key, and a value. Like this. Also, you can have a method. I said when you have a function inside an object, you call it method. So we can say show name, and when we call on this method, that's to make it neater and do something like this. Whenever I call on this method, I want to point the name. Point my. Is that?
You wrote print. Yeah, Python is doing print.
I'm sorry, I just finished Python class. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I think I made the same mistake last week. I think it's because I started this class. You said?
I said you did last week also.
Yeah, because I think Python 8 to 9 and this is 9 to 10.
Okay.
I think that's the reason. Okay. So my name is this dot name. So this is going to print my name is Taye for me. So how we need to do is we call on the objects. So let's go live. So we have this. My name is Taye here. Any question? This is like a revision of what we did last week. Any question?
Yes.
Alright. Now we want to look at something we call square bracket notation. But before then, we've been using something called dot notation, even though we've not named it, but it's called dot notation. What is that? If I want to display name, I can say my objects dot name, and that will give me Taye. Do you understand? The name dot name. If I say console log my object dot name, that will give me Taye. If I say my object dot department, that will give me CSC. Good. But instead of using dots is the use of dot notation. Another way to go about it is to use square brackets. This is the square bracket notation. Dot notation, dot the property you want there. Square bracket notation, square brackets. The property you want there, but the property will be in quotes. Name. Do you understand? This will give me Taye. The difference between them is that square bracket notation expects this quote around it, while dot notation does not expect it. So let's console log this. I'll cut this, put it inside the console log. Like this. And we have the same results. We have Taye here. If I remove these quotes around it, it's going to tell name is not defined. Okay, undefined. Okay, because this is name, that is department. Your department is not defined. Department is not defined. So it expects you to put quotes around it. If not, if there is no quote around it, it will assume that this is a variable.
Okay.
So assume that, let's assume I have a variable here called let's let's say department equals to let's say EEE. So this is going to say my obj, that you now put EEE here. So this is like saying console log I'm coming. It's like saying something like this. Do you understand it?
Okay.
It will just put the value of department here. So it's going to be this. So if I want this to be undefined, of course, because there's no EEE key here. Now let's play with this part a bit before we move on. What if I do something like this? What do you think this will give me?
It will still be undefined.
Really?
Because he said it should look for my objects.
Okay.
It's going to look my object my object variable. Let's my object. It will check the value and the key and the value there.
Okay. This is going to give us CSC. Now let's explain this. If you understand what I'm about, if you understand what I'm about to explain now, really you won't even have issues at all when we get to dynamic property. You will really understand dynamic property. What I'm about to explain now, just flow with me. Let's go. You know, I explained something the other time that if EEE is here, this is going to see it as something like this. It will see this line as this. Do you get that part?
Yes, I get it now.
Okay. Alright. So, and you know, if I say console log name, this will give me Taye Abi.
Yes.
Now, if this is now department, so department equals to department. So it's going to see it as this.
I understand now.
Exactly.
I get it now.
Alright.
So it means it's look at this upper one, the one at the top. So we have already assigned the quotation on inside the one inside the variable.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. So when it's time to do it, it's to display it. No, but you see this square bracket notation, it cannot be used for functions. You cannot use it for function. That is, if I want to call on this show name, I cannot say dot show name like this. Oops. Show name like this. I cannot do this. I cannot even do it like this also. I'm coming. I don't think this is possible right there. You cannot do this. So you cannot use this square bracket notation for functions. You only use dot notation to call on functions. The square bracket notation is just for properties, I mean these key properties alone, not for methods like this. So let's talk about dynamic properties. Dynamic properties. To understand this, we're going to play with something. Input button. Click me. ID. Let's say I just call it IMP. So when I click on this button, I want to call on this function. Let's get the function together. So equals to this. We can say inside this, create a name and let the value be IMP does value. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say console log origin. So if you enter your name here, you click on this button, it will not decode here. It creates an object. The object will have a key called name, and the value will be imp dot value. So it's going to be whatever you have here. Good. So let me put Adesala. Then when you put the name is Adesala, I'll change this to Sherifat. And the value of this will be Sherifat. Any question?
Yeah, I get it.
Okay. Now, we've been able to make this value to be dynamic. That is to be based on whatever I type here, right?
Yeah.
Next, I want to make this key to be dynamic. So that this will not just be name every time. Irrespective of whatever I type here now, this will always remain name. If I put Tolu here, this will always remain name is Tolu. So I want this to also be dynamic so that I can choose to change this to department if I want it to be department. This is where dynamic property comes in now. I'll put another input for that. I can call it, what should we call it? I just say my key. So instead of this being named now, we want it to be this my key. Do you get it?
Yeah.
Okay. My key dot value. Do you any question to this point?
I'm getting it.
You can see that this is already throwing error. He's not allowing us to.
Yeah.
And of course, when you get to the browser, you see error in your console. It's not allowing us to. You cannot use dot value or dot something here. It's expecting a single value. So how then do we ensure that it is whatever is inside this input? Let's look at other ways we can go about it. What if I try to create a variable? I can call it KUI, and I will say KUI equals to my key dot value. Then this becomes KUI. Do you get what you're trying to do?
Yes,
let's do that and see if it's going to work. I'll put placeholder in both. Placeholder, this is for key, and placeholder, this is for value. Okay. So for this one, let's say I want it to be department, and I want the value to be, I put value x. Okay, let's go again. I want this to be department. I want the value to be, let's say, okay, Mr. PCH. Like this. I'll click on this. What do you observe? Are you there, man? Please, are you still with us? Hello?
Hello?
Aha.
Okay. Let's go into that.
Okay, okay. So, this is what I was explaining. I said, what do you observe here? Let's do it. Let me run it again.
Okay.
Yes. So, what do you observe?
It's supposed to give us department message, but it's still giving us key.
Exactly. It's still giving us key. The reason is this. Remember, when we wanted to use name, all we had to do was just to come here and put name. Abina.
Yeah.
So, when you put key also, it will just put key. It's not going to put this variable.
Okay.
It's not going to put this variable. So, what do we need to do? If we want to make this key to be dynamic, to be something that can change, what you need to do is that you put it in square braces like this. Do you understand?
Okay.
You put it in square braces. That's all.
Okay.
Once you put it in square braces like this, it will now come here and pick the value of this, then place it here. Like whatever is the value of key. Value of key is, in fact, I can just remove this line, and I will come and just say, what's the ID? My key. I mean, the ID of this input is my key.
Yes,
So I can come and say my key
what
dot value, and this will work fine. this.
But
Another
is that also called brackets, square brackets notation?
yes, this is we are using the square bracket notation here.
Okay.
Then another thing we could have done is this. We can do something like this. Make this an empty object. Come here and now say obj dot like square braces now. My key dot value equals to imp dot value. This will still work fine. And if you are making
like we are assigning value also to
yes, then we can put this variable key also. All of this is fine. That is, you've already saved it as variable key. So whatever the value of variable key is, it will put it here. Do you get it? Key equals to my key dot value. So whatever is inside this place is value of key. So it will just come here and place it here. So that will be to this. Any question? Let's run it together. So verify if it's working. So let's say this is school, and let's say the value of school is UI, like this. You can say school UI. Let's proceed. We've looked at dynamic properties, but before we leave this section, we want to look at advantages of square bracket notation and dot notation. That is, when do you use square bracket notation? When do you use dot notation? And what advantage does one possesses over the other? Now, if you notice, dot notation is neater. It looks neater. I don't know if you observe, but it's neater. Let's say I have an object like this. I'll just put it here. If I want to access this name and say obj.name, this is going to give me Taye. Now compare this with this. So you see, the dot name is shorter and neater than this.
It's very straightforward. And this one.
Yes, it is more straightforward. Thank you. Thank you. No one is about to shine. You are welcome to class. Okay. So this is, like you said, this is more straightforward than the dot notation is more straightforward than this square bracket notation. So that's one advantage of dot notation over square bracket notation. Another advantage is that the dot notation can be used to call on method. You know, I said something that if you have a method here, like this, I cannot use square bracket notation to call on this method. I can only use dot notation. So that's another advantage of dot notation over square bracket notation. Now, but the advantage that square bracket notation has over dot notation, the major one is the dynamic keys that we looked at. Square bracket notation allows us to make the key dynamic just as we saw the other time. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay, that's one advantage. Another advantage it gives us is that square bracket notation allows this, it's possible for you to make the key to have space. What do I mean? Imagine I want to add a new property to this object, and I want that to be department of student. So I cannot say obj.department of student equals to software. No, I cannot do this. This will not work. You can see this space is causing an error. So I cannot, the name here cannot have space. Instead, in worst case scenario, you can do this anyway. You can do this in worst case scenario, but you cannot, this cannot have space. But for square bracket notation, you can use whatever name you want. So let's check this out and let's see I'll just say console log obj. Console log obj. Yeah. Can you see department of student?
Yes, yes.
So square bracket notation makes you to use whatever name of your choice. That is, even if it has spacing, it's not going to throw any sorry, it's not going to throw any error. That's the advantage of square bracket notation. And of course, when you want to retrieve it also, this department of student can only be retrieved using the square bracket notation. You cannot use dot notation to display the value. You cannot. You cannot say console log obj dot departments of students. It's not going to work. This will not work. So in order to display it, you need to also make use of square brackets notation like this, and this will give us software. So, well, having said this, I will still advise that as much as possible, don't allow your key to have spaces as much as you can. This key,
Okay.
as much as you can. So what you will mainly be using the square bracket notation for will be because of dynamic keys.
Okay.
That will be the primary reason. Well, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't, but I'm just advising that, okay, as much as possible, don't, because really when people use your codes, most people use dot notation to retrieve keys. Most people use dot notation. So ordinarily, when developers pick your code, maybe they know that this is an object and they want to retrieve it. Naturally, they will use the dot notation because it is neater, it is shorter, and all. So that's why I said, as much as possible, don't let your key name to have spaces like this. So this is dot notation and square bracket notation. So we've looked at arrays, we've looked at objects. In the next class, we are going to combine them together, then I'll give you an assignment on this. I think you've been resting for a while now. I've not given us an assignment. So after the next class, where we're going to now combine objects with arrays, then I'll give an assignment afterwards. Any questions so far?
No question.
Alright, ma'am. Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Good night.